Hello and welcome to another amazing and exciting. This is a grammar, but also a vocabulary lesson that's going to help you build your vocabulary, but also, like I said, it's going to help you improve your grammar when it comes to writing, but also speaking, because this is when I notice people will make small mistakes. And what we're going to be talking about are gerunds and infinitives. Notice I said gerund or infinitive because in this lesson specifically, we're going to talk about which one comes after some very common English verbs, common verbs that you'll use in everyday conversation. So are you going to follow it with a gerund or an infinitive, or maybe you could follow it with either one of them. So let's begin by talking about, well, what is a gerund and what is an infinitive. And as we go through this, I do have a little bit of a quiz for you to allow you to participate in this lesson, because I want you to be able to practice. So a gerund is a word ending in ing that is made from a verb and used like a noun. So you could have a gerund at the beginning of a sentence, but once again, I'm talking in this lesson, we're going to talk about gerunds that come after some common verbs. So here is a list of just common verbs that are followed by a gerund. And I used a resource that was provided by Hunter College. And it's a useful resource. I will link a PDF copy, a link to the PDF down in the description if you'd like to check it out, download it, review it, and yeah, this is one of the resources I used when creating this lesson. So I don't expect you to memorize all of these verbs. I think the best way to learn this is over time, getting exposure to the language, reading, listening, and then practicing like we're going to do in just a moment. So these are different these are different verbs that are followed by a gerund right here. And now let's moving on to the meaning of an infinitive. So this is talking about the basic form of a verb that usually follows to. I say usually because there are different types of infinitives. Like you could have the bare infinitive, in which case there is no to. In this lesson, though, I'm going to be talking about, when I say the infinitive, I'm referring to using to plus the base verb. To play, to walk, to dance, to run. So those are the infinitives that I'm referring to in this lesson. And of course, again, I have another nice long list of common verbs that are followed by an infinitive. All right, so all of these verbs right here, when you're using these in conversation, when you're writing, you're going to want to follow them with an infinitive. So again, I told you that you don't need to memorize them. I think as you're reading, you see how these words are used together. Your brain is great at recognizing patterns, but also practice. Practice is important. So let me give you some questions, and I just want you to complete the sentence. What would you use? The gerund or the infinitive? You can write your answer down in the chat, or if you're watching this later, write it in the comments. I just want you to participate and actually be able to practice this as we go through them. So the first sentence, I regret you that the show has been canceled. So I'm giving you the verb there, or at least the base verb. And are you going to turn that into a gerund, or are you going to use the infinitive? I regret you that the show has been canceled. So the key here is thinking about, well, that verb regret. When you're using the verb regret, what are you going to follow it with? And I see some great good answers. So I think you guys know this. Excellent. Jean-Marco Luminous or Rahel. We're talking about the infinitive. All right, whoops, that's the next one. I regret to inform you that the show has been canceled. So if we're using the verb regret, you're going to follow that with the infinitive. The next one, right here. I waited, what would happen? So the verb in that, either the gerund or the infinitive, see, which one are you going to turn it into? But the verb that it's following is wait, to wait. So waited, I waited, what? What would happen? So when you're talking about the verb wait, are you going to follow it with a gerund or an infinitive? And if this is one of those situations where I feel like you might not stop in the middle of a conversation to think about, try to just think about what would come natural. All right, what do you think? So excellent, good job, Eggsy, Layla. So you're going to follow wait with the infinitive. I waited to see what would happen. All right, I saw before some of you were mentioning the gerund. So again, my goal each of these lessons is that you learn something new. So I waited to see. I waited to I waited to learn what would happen. I waited to, again, anytime you're going to follow this with the infinitive. So I tried to choose a sentence maybe that you might hear from somebody saying, yeah, I'm going to wait to see what happens. I want to wait to see what happens next. Then we have this one. We considered the train. So we're talking about take. Are you going to say taking or to take? The gerund or the infinitive when it follows the verb consider. So when this is our verb, again, considered what? We follow it with the gerund or infinitive. What do you think? And again, just practice. What do you think? Let me know. And I feel like this one, if you think about other times you might hear it, the context, then you could kind of piece it together, what someone might say. So the correct answer, excellent, Giancarlos, SDB, Savara, we're talking about the gerund in this case. We considered taking the bus. When the verb is consider, you consider doing something. The next one, right here, he managed his nose clean. Now, this is an idiom, which I'll tell you what it means. If we're talking about, is nose clean, I'll tell you once I give you the answer. But again, the verb is manage. In this case, we're talking about it in the past, but we're going to follow that with what? The gerund, keeping, or the infinitive, to keep. He managed his nose clean. So I hope that many of you said, just like, yes, Rajesh and Winteri, yes, to keep. He managed to keep his nose clean. So you managed to do something. And again, this to keep someone's nose clean, this is an idiom. This phrase means to stay out of trouble, to avoid problems. And you could say, yeah, they managed to keep someone's nose clean. It's an informal, casual phrase to stay out of trouble. Then I have this one for you. And this one, it can be a little tricky. The dentist advised after every meal. And I'm sure you go to the dentist, this is something that they would advise. So we're talking about either the gerund flossing or the infinitive to floss. And I'll tell you why I think this one could be a little tricky. And so the dentist advised after every meal. When we're talking about the verb advise, you're going to follow that with the gerund. The dentist advised flossing after every meal. The one thing I said that this could be a little tricky, because if we add in there the object, the dentist advised us, in that case, then you're going to follow it with to do something. The dentist advised us, or the dentist advised me to floss after every meal. So if we're talking about directly following the verb advise, you're going to use a gerund, but oftentimes people would talk about, well, who they're advising. This person advised me, they advised him or her, and then you would follow it with that to floss, to go, to play. So this one's a little tricky, but again, we're talking about just the verbs and what would come directly after it. Would it be a gerund or an infinitive? The next one, let's postpone for the marathon until next week. All right, this is something that I feel like I would say. All right, so the verb is postpone, and what are we going to follow that with? Are we going to follow that with the gerund or the infinitive? Let's postpone Let's postpone for the marathon until next week. We're talking about train. So training or to train. So postpone, you're going to follow that with the gerund, training. Let's postpone training for the marathon until next week. We're going to postpone doing something. Excellent. Good job, Mohammed, Moses. Nice. So you would postpone doing something. Here's another one. He didn't expect the shot. So you can see he's taking a shot playing basketball. He didn't expect the shot. So the verb expect, is it going to be followed with the gerund missing or the infinitive to miss? He didn't expect the shot. When talking about the verb expect, you're going to follow this one with the infinitive, to miss. He didn't expect to miss the shot. All right? He didn't expect, to to find something, or didn't expect to discover this thing. So you're going to follow this verb with the infinitive. I have one more for you, okay? And again, this one it's a little tricky, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But again, we're talking about the verb, in this case, admitted, would be followed by what? The gerund or the infinitive. The students admitted on the exam. The students admitted on the exam. We're talking about the word cheat, so cheating or to cheat. Which one of those do you think would, really correctly completes that example? So in this case, we're talking about the verb admit. You're going to follow this verb with the gerund. The students admitted cheating on the exam. The other reason why I said this can be a little tricky, often admit, you would admit to doing something. So you might follow it with to, but also, again, then follow it with the gerund. So you could say the students admitted to cheating on the exam. And really, the meaning is the same. As to which one would be more common, I often feel like that to would follow it, to doing something. You admit to doing something. But as far as directly following it with a gerund or an infinitive, you're going to follow admit with the gerund. Okay, so those are common verbs that you're either going to follow with that gerund or with that infinitive. So now we're going to switch gears, and I have some other verbs for you that you could follow with either one. And I want to really dive a little deeper into these to explore, well, how are they different? Are there any differences between them? So these are some common verbs that may be followed by a gerund or infinitive. There are 12 verbs down here. So let's start with this question. All right, if I give you these two sentences, I like to watch YouTube, I like watching YouTube. Which one do you think you would use? If you were talking to someone, you're having a conversation, would you use the infinitive when you're following, like, hey, I like to watch YouTube? Or do you think you would use the gerund? I like watching YouTube. Do you think there's a difference between these sentences? Okay, so again, we're talking about the verb like. It is a very common verb that you're going to use quite often. So either one of them is correct. And both of them, these sentences mean the same thing. So I want to begin talking about verbs that you can follow with a gerund or an infinitive, and there's no change in the meaning. So I had that list of 12. Now I'm giving you these 5 right here. And there are other verbs out there as well, but I just chose these. I think these are a little more common. So we have like, love, prefer, hate, can't stand. All right. Notice that all of these are stative verbs. All right, which means that you're not going to really use them in the continuous tense. Conversationally, I'm sure probably you've heard maybe somebody using like or love in the continuous tense, but in general, like grammatically speaking, these are stative verbs. You would not use them in the continuous tense. There's a reason why I'm telling you this, and we'll come back to it in just a little bit. So I gave you just different examples. Like I like to watch YouTube. I like watching YouTube. Means the same thing. She loves to eat seafood. She loves eating seafood. Either one's fine. He prefers to take the bus. He prefers taking the bus. You could use either one. I hate to do laundry. I hate doing laundry. Either is okay. And they can't stand to lose, and they can't stand losing. Again, no change in meaning. I will say that there are instances in which one may be more commonly used than the other. And that's always a question that I get. And it's a little difficult to determine which one, but I have a reference that a resource that I would like to share with you. I've also included this link down in the description. It is a link to Google Ngram Viewer. And what they've done with Ngram Viewer is taken just this corpus of writing, which is from books, websites, I think blogs. And what it does is it allows us to compare how frequently words are used in this corpus. Now, bear in mind that this is talking about writing, but we can get a general idea as to which phrases or words are used more often. So, for example, and took these screenshots just to show you like. So we have like to watch versus like watching. You can see it's pretty close, but according to Ngram Viewer, it's a little more common to use the infinitive. You like to watch when we're talking about following it with watch. If we go down here, same thing with play. What's more common, like to play or like playing? It seems like it's more common that someone's going to use like to play. Either way, they're both fine. The meaning is the same. Now, if we switch it with the verb love, and we're going to keep using like watch and to play, well, then it changes slightly. If we're comparing love watching versus love to watch, in this case, it's a little more common to use the gerund. Same with play. When you're comparing love to play versus love playing, it's very close, but according to Ngram Viewer, it's a little more common. It's love playing occurs more frequently than love to play. Now, personally, I feel like, and this is just me, when I'm having a conversation, I don't know why, I probably end up using a gerund more often, but that's just me. The next thing that I want to look at, so we talked about 5 verbs in which the meaning stays the same. All right, so now I want to look at a few verbs, where there's maybe a slight difference, and I want you to think about this sentence right here. What do you think? What would you use? We have only just begun to understand the human brain, or we have only just begun understanding the human brain. Which one do you think is correct? Which one would you use if you were talking to someone and you're going to say this sentence? Would you use to understand or understanding? And of course, I'll let you know in just a moment. We'll come back to this. So we're talking about these 3 verbs right here: begin, start, and continue. Now, in this case, you could follow either one with a gerund or infinitive, and there's really Little change in meaning, and I really shouldn't use meaning. I added the word usage instead. I think a lot of sites they'll talk about, well, there's just a slight change in meaning, but I would say usage would be a better way of putting it, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So number one, all right, when the verb is not continuous, use either a gerund or an infinitive, all right? Either one is okay. So like begin, suddenly she began to sing a song. Suddenly, she began singing. I could say either one of them is okay. Just to give you, again, little insert my opinion here. I feel like if I were going to end the sentence, probably I would use the gerund. Like, oh, suddenly she began singing. She began dancing. She began writing. If I'm going to follow that with more information, then maybe I would use the infinitive. Like she began to sing a song. She began to write a letter. But again, you could say she began writing a letter. She began singing a song. Either one of them is okay. Same with start. All right, you could use either one. Like that first one, he then started to run even faster. Or a month ago, I started running. I feel like in the first sentence, either one would be okay. In the next one, a month ago, I started running. I feel like probably it would, and I keep saying I feel, like this is my opinion, all right? These are not rules. I feel like it'd be more common to use the gerund, like referring to this activity, like a month ago I started running, a month ago I started meditating, a month ago I started doing something. But you could still say like a month ago I started to run. That's perfectly fine. And then continue, please continue to hit the like button, all right? Or please continue hitting the like button. Either one is okay. And yes, I hope you please continue to hit or hitting the like button. I will say that with continue, when I looked around and played around with Ngram Viewer, it does seem that continue it's more likely to follow it with the gerund, continue doing something. All right. So the next one, number two, okay, so that was when it's not continuous. When these verbs are continuous, you're going to use the infinitive. All right, so remember I talked about like those other verbs, like, love, prefer. Those are stative verbs, so you're not going to use them in the continuous tense. Well, begin, start, and continue, we can use them with that ing. So like our first one, he's beginning to believe. He's beginning to believe. All right, what movie is that from? All right, that's a bonus question for you. Can you think of that movie? He's beginning to believe. And I put that picture there for you as a little bit of a hint. Let's see if anybody, it's an older movie. Same start, if somebody were to say, hey, I'm starting to feel left out. Again, you're going to follow it with the infinitive. And then again, continue. We're continuing to monitor the situation. Think of a doctor's office, all right? They're monitoring a patient, and they would come out and say, hey, we're continuing to monitor the situation. It's ongoing. It's continuous, and we're going to use it with that verb in the continuous tense. So just that's something to keep in mind. When the verb is continuous, you're going to follow it with the infinitive. And this is when I go back to talking about like usage instead of meaning necessarily. So in case you're wondering that the movie that I was talking about is The Matrix. When at the end he's saying, oh, he's beginning to believe. So then the third one, okay? In some situations, the infinitive may mean that you did not complete or continue the action. So in this case, once again, I think it's more common to use the infinitive. We have only just begun to understand the human brain. All right, that was that first that sentence, those two sentences I showed you. So in this case, to understand, again, it tells us that, okay, this is not complete yet, all right? We're still doing this. We've only just begun to understand. Same with start. If I were to say, I started to learn Korean, but I ended up dropping the class. So you started to do something, but this action was not complete. You could use a gerund in this context, but once again, all right, the infinitive really, it tells us, okay, this thing was not completed yet. That's why I added that but statement. Yeah, I started to do this, but something happened and it didn't work out. And continue, even though we haven't discovered other intelligent beings, we continue to look for life on other planets. It's ongoing, it's not complete, we continue to look. So something to keep in mind when we're talking about these three verbs right here: begin, start, and continue. And there are still some verbs that we have not covered just yet, and I wanted to open it up with this question, or these two sentences right here. What do you think? Which one would you use? I stopped to use the toilet, or I stopped using the toilet. Okay, what do you think is one that you might use from time to time? Okay, so the final four verbs that we're going to look at are right here. And with these verbs, there actually is a change in meaning. So I've just given you the infinitive and the gerund over there. Like, you stop to do something, you stop doing something, you remember to do something, or you remember doing something. With all of these, there is going to be a change in the meaning. So let's begin with like stop. Okay, so you have stop plus the infinitive. It means that, well, to interrupt an activity in order to do something else. So you're doing something, you're driving, and then, oh, I stopped to use the toilet. Or maybe you're walking, I stopped to use the toilet. You stopped what you were doing, and then you did something else. I stopped to use the toilet. If we're talking about stop plus the gerund, in this case, we're indicating that an action is just, we don't do it any longer, all right? It no longer continues. I stopped using the toilet. In this case, this is not a sentence that you're probably going to use. I guess it is possible if somebody maybe moved out into the wilderness and then they say, yeah, I stopped using the toilet. But in this case, this would mean that you just don't use the toilet any longer, which is not the case for most of us. So just be careful with this verb stop, because you could use either the gerund or the infinitive, but it does have a different meaning. The same goes with remember. So remember plus the infinitive. You remember that you need to do something. I remembered to turn off the light. Right? You remembered, I have to do this. I remembered that I have to turn off the light. I remembered to turn off the light. Remember plus the gerund, this would be like you're remembering something that it's already complete. You've done this. Maybe it was a long time ago in your past. Like, I remember visiting the lake as a child. Like, you're thinking back a long time ago. It's been done for some time, and you're going to use the gerund. So just keep that in mind. You either remember to do something, all right, something that you need to do, or remember doing something, it's already complete in that context. And the same goes when we're talking about forget. So if you forget plus the infinitive, you forget that you need to do something. If I were to say he forgot to pay the bill, in this case, he did not pay the bill. If we're following it with the gerund, then it means that you just forgot that you have done something. So it means that you did it, you just forgot that it happened. So there's a difference. Again, he forgot to pay the bill, or in the next sentence, I said he forgot paying the bill, so he ended up paying it twice. In this context, I'm saying, well, he paid the bill, and then he forgot that this thing already happened. So perhaps he tried to pay it again, a second time. So because he forgot paying the bill, he ended up paying it twice, 2 times. So again, keep that in mind. There is a difference in the meaning. And the same goes for try right here. You try to do something. It refers to an attempt that really is not successful. Like, we tried to wake him up. So if somebody were to tell me, like, we tried to wake him up, well, then probably I think that, well, okay, he's still sleeping. You know, they tried to do it, wasn't successful. They tried to wake him up. If you follow try with the gerund, then it's talking about experimenting with different things to see if something works. So let's go back to that example. Like, we tried to wake him up. What are some different methods we use? We tried playing music. We tried shaking him. We tried, taking away the pillow. You try doing these different things, but in the end, maybe he's still sleeping. And then again, it was not successful. So then you would say, we tried to wake him up, but he's still sleeping. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. This one, it's a little bit of a slight difference, but again, it's still a difference in meaning. So again, my goal is that I hope that you learned something new from this lesson. If you did, then I would really appreciate it if you go ahead and hit that like button. Check out those resources down below in the links. I really do think they help. And the more you keep reading, the more you listen, the more you practice, like we were doing in this lesson, the next time you're having a conversation, or even you're writing a letter or an email, you're just going to use the correct one. Because these are not rules that I would say, okay, let's go through and memorize them. Just learn them naturally over time, and it's going to stick with you, and you'll put it up there you'll make it a part of your active memory. So thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you, Elena, Lolly. Good to see you. Vicky, Gustav, Social Vibe. Thanks for being here. I will be back again with another lesson shortly. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.